Miss Valda Carver and Mr. Zachary Baxter are deeply in love, their hearts beating as one. Let's take a look at their beautiful love story. The wedding officiant said slowly. Zachary held my hand tightly. His handsome face was full of anticipation, his usually stern expression now lifted with a broad smile. He whispered in my ear, Valda, we do have some wonderful memories together. Wonderful memories? Did he mean when Zachary held my head underwater for 5 minutes, or when he locked me in a cage and starved me for 3 days? As the love story music began to play, Zachary looked up at the screen expectantly. Suddenly, harsh electronic music blared out. Instead of our wedding photos, videos of me being abused appeared on the screen. In the video, my voice was hoarse from crying. The images were clear, the sound loud, all thanks to Zachary. He had recorded this video himself. As soon as the video started playing, Zachary's eyes turned bloodshot. He became like a wild beast. Zachary grabbed a chair and smashed it into the big screen. He seemed to have gone mad, striking the screen again and again until it was completely destroyed. I stood on the stage, laughing through my tears. I said, "Happy wedding, Zachary. This is my wedding gift to you. Do you like it?" I clutched my stomach, almost doubling over with laughter. Not a single person in the audience dared to whisper. My filth and depravity were well known throughout London's high society. Yet no one dared to laugh at me. Zachary was trying to make amends, but I could never forget. On my 22nd birthday, the curtain of the cage was lifted. I was huddled inside, having been starved for 3 days. They threw a live chicken at me. How loudly they laughed then. Why aren't they laughing now? I've always been a bit slow when it comes to learning, not the brightest spark, you might say. To make matters worse, my parents died in a car accident. I patted my sister on the head and said, Winnie, you go to university. I'll take care of you. Winifred cried and said she wanted to work with me, but I scolded her harshly. I still remember that summer, in our rented flat, when Winnie swore to me that she would make something of herself and not let my sacrifices be in vain. I started working, taking any job I could get. At first, I had no experience, so I just knew how to wait tables and wash dishes. I didn't earn much, so I lived frugally, saving money for Winnie's use. My sister was determined. She studied hard at university. Once, I brought some snacks to see her at school, and I found her in the canteen sipping free soup, dipping pieces of scone into it. Tears started streaming down my face. Later, I thought, this isn't enough, I'm not earning enough. Without qualifications, I decided to become a delivery driver. It was harder work and more tiring, but the pay was better. I started earning more, but then Winnie got into trouble. One rainy day, as I was zipping around town making deliveries, I got a call from her tutor. Are you Winifred Carver's sister? Winifred's been in a fight with her classmates. I immediately rode my motorbike to Winnie's school. The rain was so heavy that my bike skidded, and I fell, scraping my knee. I was in such a hurry that I didn't even bother about it. I just picked up the bike and rushed off. When I arrived at the school, I saw Winnie standing in the corner of the tutor's office. She was biting her lip, not crying, just silently watching the 3 girls in front of the tutor. Those 3 girls were all dressed nicely, clearly from well-off families. They were all talking at once, listing Winnie's supposed offenses to the tutor. She never joins us for dinner in the dorm, she's so antisocial. When we try to talk to her, she barely responds. We asked her what celebrities she likes, and she didn't even say anything. She gets up at 7 every morning, it really disturbs our rest. We wanted to chip in to buy an air conditioner for our room, and she said she couldn't afford it. Who doesn't have a few £100s these days? The tutor was a young man, clearly overwhelmed by all these female students. He adjusted his glasses and stammered, but you can't just lock Winifred out of the dorm for a whole night. They locked my sister out for a whole night? I immediately grasped the key point and looked at the 3 overdressed girls. The leader, a girl with pink nail polish decorated with little white rabbits, mumbled, "We were all asleep, who heard her knocking?" Winnie, standing in the corner, saw me arrive and finally started crying. With red-rimmed eyes, she said, "I'm sorry, sis. I've caused trouble for you." I wiped her eyes and said, "You haven't caused trouble for me. Others have caused trouble for us. I stormed over, shouting at the dormitory supervisor. What kind of teacher are you? They locked my sister out of her room, and you're not punishing them? They didn't mean to, they just didn't hear. The supervisor's voice trailed off as she tried to smooth things over. I didn't care about anything else, I just didn't want my sister to be bullied. The supervisor tried to calm me down while making excuses, but I wouldn't let it go. Finally, the ringleader, a girl who looked like a little rabbit, got annoyed. She marched over to me and said, "It takes two to tango. Why do you think none of us like Winifred? Maybe it's her own fault?" I lost it instantly, and without thinking, I slapped the girl across the face. I had no idea that this slap would ruin the rest of my life and my sister's. I pressured the supervisor to change my sister's room. After giving my sister a few more words of advice, I went home and realized my knee was bleeding badly, sticking to my trousers. The wound on my knee had adhered to my trousers, and when I peeled them off, the pain made my teeth chatter. I carelessly dabbed some alcohol on it, applied a bit of ointment, and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I was woken by a loud banging on the door. When I opened it, I saw 3 men who quickly covered my mouth and everything went black. When I came to, I was in a filthy warehouse surrounded by dusty machinery and junk. A man was sitting in front of me, legs crossed, his shirt open exposing his chest. His eyebrows were arched high, with a small scar cutting through the left one. "Valda Carver, you hit my girlfriend. Do you know who I am?" At that time, I didn't know who he was, so I defiantly said, "Yeah, I hit her." "What are you going to do about it?" "Hit me back?" I had no idea that he was Zachary Baxter, the richest and most powerful young man in all of London. His girlfriend? He didn't care much for her. He just suddenly felt like teaching someone a lesson. And unfortunately, that someone was me. That day, he asked me, "Which hand did you use?" Before I could answer, his leather shoes suddenly stomped on my hand. I screamed in pain. He was smoking a cigarette, looking at me with raised eyebrows as if he were admiring a view, while his foot mercilessly ground into my hand. I was shaking with pain but stubbornly refused to beg for mercy. "Interesting, aren't you?" He looked at me as I gritted my teeth and broke out in a cold sweat. Then he casually pressed the lit cigarette against my forehead. With a hiss, I felt as if a hole had been burned into my forehead. The pain was so intense I wanted to roll on the ground. "You've got guts. I wonder if your sister has the same kind of courage." As soon as he mentioned my sister, I crumbled. I couldn't let my sister suffer. Trembling, I knelt on the ground and banged my head against it repeatedly. "Zachary, it's my fault. I apologize to you. Please don't go after Winifred. It's all my fault alone. All right, I won't go after your sister. But I'm not done venting my anger yet." Zachary Baxter pulled me up, looking at me with a mischievous grin. "If you manage not to cry until the end, I'll leave your sister alone." He clapped his hands, and 3 men surrounded me. I don't remember how I survived that day. I remember crying. I remember writhing on the ground like a fish on a cutting board. I remember being beaten, my nose bleeding profusely. At first, I could smell the blood, but later I couldn't. My hand was crushed under a leather shoe, but I didn't cry. My hair was pulled as I was slapped, but I didn't cry. My arm was twisted forcefully behind my back, but I still didn't cry. Zachary grew bored and said, "This isn't fun. She's not crying. Let's bring her sister over and deal with both of them." In that instant, I broke down in tears. Tears mixed with blood and dirt fell to the ground as I clung to Zachary's legs. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please, I beg you, leave my sister alone. With someone like Zachary Baxter, if he wanted to toy with me, no one could save me." I had thought about going to the police, but the moment I set foot in the station, Zachary sent me photos of my sister. He gripped my neck and said, "I'll let you go when I'm bored of you." At first, I was defiant and disobeyed him, so he nearly beat me to death. Then, I learned to submit. Only by submitting could I avoid being beaten to death. When Zachary saw that I had submitted, he stopped torturing me. Several times, I endured it. Every night, I would look at the stars outside the window, calculating when I could die. Because Zachary controlled me, I couldn't go out to earn money delivering food. I didn't want my sister to know about my situation, so I swallowed my pride and begged Zachary for some money. I clearly remember Zachary's mocking gaze that day. He pinched my face, smirking as he said, "So you've learned to ask me for things? If you want something, you have to give something in return." That day he was drunk, his ears flushed red. I trembled as I fingered the buttons of his shirt. He threw me to the ground, saying I was dirty. I didn't give up. I clung to his legs again, tears streaming down my face. I knew how disgusting I looked, but I had no choice. I needed money for my sister. I knew I was still quite pretty. When I was working, many people wanted to be my sugar daddy. Zachary couldn't resist my beauty either. I don't know how I got through that night. Zachary pressed me into the bathtub and scrubbed me harshly with a brush. After that day, I didn't have to sleep in the cage in his room anymore. He let me sleep in the bed, holding me tightly at night. He brushed my hair as if grooming a dog, bought me pretty clothes, and dressed me up. I remained silent. Zachary cupped my face and asked, "Tell me, isn't it a great love that you endure this suffering for your sister's sake?" Zachary loved to listen to me talk on the phone with my sister. He said my tone was so gentle it could drip water. He said, "Valda, say something to me like that too. I want to hear it." Under pressure, I awkwardly said a few words. Zachary didn't find it awkward. He enjoyed it and said, "Valda, be as good to me as you are to your sister. I need someone sincere around me too." I hid it so well. The things Zachary did to me, how I lost my dignity, no one knew. One moment he would be yanking my hair, playing with me, and the next I could video call my sister with a smile on my face. I asked my sister if she was doing well. She said she was doing great, everyone in the dormitory was nice to her, and told me not to worry. I believed her. I really did. Later, when my sister jumped from a building, I realized that the little rabbit girl hadn't left my sister alone. She claimed she had lost her money and falsely accused her sister of being a thief. A wad of cash was found under her sister's former dormitory bed. All the girls in the class isolated her sister. Before lessons, her sister's books placed on the front row would be thrown to the back, and no one would team up with her for group projects. Her sister persevered every day, not wanting to tell her or cause her any trouble. Then, the mean girl sent the video of her being humiliated to her sister. It was the first time her sister lost her temper, lashing out at the mean girl like a madwoman. The mean girl said, "I heard from Zachary that your sister is quite stubborn, but she softens at the mention of your name." Her sister, such a clever girl, understood instantly. She jumped from the 16th floor. From the 16th floor, she leapt without a moment's hesitation, sending a text message before she jumped. She wrote, "Sis, I can't be a burden to you anymore." When Valda heard the news, she went mad. At the time, the school claimed her sister had depression, easily brushing the incident aside. Valda knelt at the school gates, holding a white banner. Zachary Baxter took her away, saying, "Don't embarrass me out here." At that moment, Zachary was still nonchalant. He said, "Your sister is dead, now you can focus on being good to me." Valda was furious. For the first time, she lunged at Zachary, biting him hard. Zachary, in pain, kicked her aside. She lay on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Zachary, fearing she had gone mad, came over to comfort her, saying, "The dead can't be brought back to life, you need to look forward." After my sister's death, I came down with a high fever. Zachary called a private doctor to give me an injection. He held my burning body and said, "Valda, I won't let you die. You still have to stay with me." I didn't want to take the medicine. I secretly hid the pills in my palm and then threw them under the bed. I loathed this world. I loathed Zachary Baxter. I hated those rich people who bullied others at will. When I wanted to die, Zachary asked me, "Don't you want revenge?" His furrowed brow was tightly knit as he said, "Aren't you supposed to be tough? Your sister died. Don't you want revenge?" Zachary's words pulled me back from the brink. Revenge, revenge. My sister was killed by 3 people. The first one was the white rabbit. Zachary wiped the tears from my face and said, "Valda, stay with me. I'll help you get your revenge." Zachary's words weren't a question. For him, he never cared about my answer. He always did what he wanted. Zachary said, "Valda, from now on, you need to treat me as well as you treated your sister." He held my head, constantly emphasizing the weight of the word family. Zachary had no family. From a young age, he knew he had many brothers. Only the child who most resembled their father could be brought back home to become an official son of the Baxter family. Zachary's mother was very strict. Zachary would be punished in a dark room even for walking incorrectly. When his brothers tried to kill him, the mother who had raised him since childhood jumped out of the window to escape, complaining, "If I had known he'd be so useless, I wouldn't have wasted my time." After the attack that night, Zachary survived and was taken back to the Baxter family. He became the sole heir of the Baxter family. After Mr. Baxter's death, he became the head of the family. Zachary was swift and decisive in his actions. He brought the white rabbit to the warehouse I had once visited. She was filthy all over. Her long nails with pink polish had long since broken, and her fingers were bloody, clearly having been tortured. She cried miserably, constantly begging for mercy. She called out Zachary's name, hoping he would show leniency for old time's sake. Zachary acted as if he couldn't hear her. He ordered his men to proceed. Only then did I realize they had so many ways to torture someone. Zachary, with a cigarette dangling from his lips, said, "Do you want to take a couple of swings?" I shook my head, tears streaming down uncontrollably. I was too scared. The white rabbit wasn't a commoner like me. She came from a wealthy family, a proper socialite. But Zachary said he'd deal with her, and he did. His influence ran deep. Seeing me cry in fear, Zachary hugged me and laughed. "Look how scared you are. Valda's always been timid. As my woman, you'll need to toughen up a bit." That night, I had nightmares all night long. I deeply realized one thing: Zachary Baxter wasn't human. Could I ever win against someone like him? After that girl, the white rabbit, disappeared, the police came around a few times. And her parents caused a fuss on several occasions. In the end, the conclusion was that she had been catfished online and kidnapped abroad. No one suspected Zachary Baxter. Since that incident, I had been with Zachary for 2 years. For those entire 2 years, I was the only woman in Zachary's life. Zachary had a strong need for control and possession. After being with him, I hardly spoke to any other man besides him. Then he erased everything from 3 years ago. Those who had seen my performance and mocked me, Zachary ruined them all, leaving their lives in tatters. In all of London, not a single person dared to look at me with contempt. They even sent me jewelry and accessories, begging me to put in a good word for them with Zachary. In our 2nd year together, Zachary flew me to a private island on his jet, where we spent 6 whole months. Those 6 months were blissful for Zachary. During the day, he would teach me in the villa. He seemed intent on molding me into his ideal version. I had always struggled with academics, and my memory wasn't the best. Yet Zachary insisted on teaching me management and finance. But I couldn't understand a word. I'd end up in tears, which amused Zachary to no end. When Zachary was in meetings, I'd fall asleep while revising, only to wake up and find him drawing a crown on my forehead with a pen. As soon as I opened my eyes, he looked a bit flustered, his ears turning red and his gaze shifty. I said, "What are you doing?" "You're just like those naughty boys from school." Zachary replied gruffly, trying to justify himself, "I've never been to school." Zachary had grown up with his mother and had never attended school. All his knowledge came from private tutors. His entire existence was geared towards inheriting the Baxter family business. Zachary arranged a packed schedule for me. He even taught me how to shoot, buying me a beautiful, elegant handgun. Standing at the shooting range, he held my hand, telling me to steady my breath and focus ahead. With his eyes half closed, his long, narrow eyes exuding confidence, he said, "See the head of that dummy in front?" Bang! Zachary's aim was impeccable. The glass head of the dummy opposite shattered instantly. I fired several shots but missed every time. Zachary said, "Valda, you still have a lot to learn. I loved learning to shoot and practiced every day. After I learned how to shoot, one night while Zachary Baxter was sleeping, I pointed the small pistol at his forehead. I controlled my shallow breathing, but Zachary suddenly opened his eyes. In the darkness, his eyes gleamed like jewels, filled with a fierce brilliance. He quickly grabbed the barrel of my gun, and with a curved smile, he said to me, "I can't die. If I die, I won't be able to be with you anymore." I said, "Zachary, why won't you just die?" "I hate you." I pulled the trigger, but the bullet didn't pierce his skull. As expected, the small pistol was just a tool Zachary used to placate me. After each training session, all the bullets were collected. I had tried to hide some before, but they were quickly discovered. This doomed assassination attempt was my gamble. I was betting on where Zachary's limits were with me. Zachary sat up and embraced me. I bit down hard on his shoulder, even tasting the metallic flavor of blood. "Valda, if I die, you'll certainly marry someone else." "I can't bear that. If I were to die, I'd definitely take you with me. Even if it means going to hell, you'd have to accompany me." Zachary spoke with a smile, but his gaze was unwaveringly determined. He bit down hard on my finger. It was also in the second year that I discovered Zachary Baxter's secret. He had been colluding with drug lords on the border. As Zachary's trips out of town became more frequent, the death toll in London rose, catching the attention of the authorities. A new police officer arrived in London. Zachary treated him to dinner, smiling gently as he said, "You look quite young. Why come to this remote place instead of a big city?" The new officer's name was Barnaby Quinn. Barnaby was intimidated by Zachary's domineering aura. He shrank back, his shoulders hunching as his voice involuntarily lowered. Barnaby said, "There were fewer applicants here, so I got in." I glanced at Barnaby a few times. He looked as if he'd been frightened out of his wits. Zachary laughed heartily, accustomed to this reaction. No one in London wasn't afraid of him. I remained silent, coldly playing with the fringe of my dress. Zachary wouldn't give me a mobile phone, nor did he allow me to use one. Seeing me entertaining myself, Zachary grew displeased. Under the table, he gripped my hand tightly. Barnaby dropped his fork. As he bent to pick it up, he caught sight of this. Annoyed, I pinched Zachary's palm. Zachary's smile only broadened. After dinner, Zachary, having had a few drinks, pressed me against the car seat, his dark eyes fixed on me. Like a cat ready to pounce in the dead of night. "You looked at him 13 times. What, think I'm too old? Fancy younger men now?" Zachary wasn't that old, just 28, but his broken eyebrow and that air of wickedness made him look in his 30s. I said, "No." Zachary's tone turned sour as he cursed, "A useless coward. He doesn't dare breathe when I speak, yet he's worth your attention." He forcefully held me down, kissing my forehead before saying, "Tonight, your punishment is to look only at me." I felt no fondness for Barnaby. Firstly, because he seemed as weak and submissive as the rest of Zachary's men. Secondly, because Zachary punished me by making me look at him all night, which I found nauseating, all for glancing at Barnaby a few times. But I did encounter Barnaby on several occasions. Each time, he'd lower his head upon seeing me. He knew I was Zachary's woman, and he feared Zachary. He was so afraid of upsetting me that he seemed to wish he could sink into the ground whenever he saw me. Whenever he saw Zachary, he'd rush to serve tea and water. Where was the bold demeanor of a police officer? He was more like a frightened quail. Zachary, knowing I disliked Barnaby, was quite pleased. He couldn't hide his smile as he said, "Not all men are like your man." In our third year together, Zachary Baxter was intently painting my toenails, cradling my foot in his hands. His usual harshness had softened, and with lowered brows and a gentle smile, he displayed an unexpected tenderness. Zachary caressed the thin calluses on my sole, his tone slightly impatient. 3 years, and still not back to normal. I lightly kicked him, but he didn't get angry. As he continued painting my nails, Zachary casually mentioned, "I'm planning to give you some assets. Tomorrow, come with me to the study to sign some contracts." I was a bit dazed. Seeing my expression, Zachary smirked, his eyebrows arching high. "What's the matter? Too happy to speak?" I wasn't too happy to speak. I was finally getting a chance to enter his study. Zachary often met with drug lords in his study. The evidence of his collusion with them should be there. Once in the study with Zachary, I carefully surveyed the room's layout. There was a safe in Zachary's study. He opened it and took out several contracts, proof of his assets. Noticing my gaze fixed on the safe, Zachary raised an eyebrow. Surprised by how wealthy I am? He handed me a few documents, saying, "Choose from these. Whatever you like, I'll give you." "I want them all," I said, looking at Zachary. I thought Zachary would frown, but he affectionately pinched my cheek and said, "Little gold digger." Then he handed me a pen, telling me to sign. Midway through signing, Zachary received a phone call and left the study. The safe was still open when he went out. The room suddenly became very quiet. I could almost hear myself swallowing. This was a trap. How could Zachary so carelessly present such important things to me, knowing I hated him? But there was only one chance. If I could get the evidence, I could find a way to send it to the police. What should I do? Look or not? That safe was like the devil's treasure, tempting me. I knew Zachary, he was too clever. I couldn't move. I resisted the urge, my gaze fixed on the open safe. Just as I was trying to see what else was inside, Zachary's voice exploded next to my ear. His voice was low, devoid of emotion. "Valda." I casually said, "Your safe is open." "What's on the third shelf?" Zachary chuckled, opening the third shelf of the safe in front of me. He took out a red velvet box, and I could finally see clearly. Inside the exquisite box was a rose made of folded napkin. I remembered that rose. In our second year, on Zachary's birthday, he took me to a seaside restaurant and kept asking for a birthday gift. I had no fondness for him, only disgust, so I carelessly picked up a napkin from the table, folded it into a rose, and tossed it to him. He wasn't angry. Instead, he played with it for a while before carefully tucking it into his suit pocket. I heard myself gulp and said, "You still kept it." "The first gift you ever gave me," Zachary sighed. Though there was some dissatisfaction on his face, he still took the paper flower and placed it back in the box. I said offhandedly, "I'll give you more in the future, no need to keep that." It was just a casual remark, but Zachary's eyes suddenly lit up, those usually fierce eyes now full of joy and surprise. He said, "Valda Carver, you said in the future, don't you dare go back on your word." As soon as I said it, I regretted it. It was just a casual comment. But Zachary was overjoyed, hugging me tightly. "Valda, we have a future together." Then Zachary told me, "Valda Carver, you're pregnant." I was pregnant. For me, this was the most disgusting, most infuriating thing in the world. The man who killed my sister was right in front of me. Every day, my nerves were stretched taut. I forced smiles, staying by his side to collect evidence to bring him down. And then he tells me I'm pregnant? I was to bear a child for my enemy, for a cold-blooded demon. This child completely disrupted my plans. I wanted to gather evidence to bring him down, not be burdened with a baby. I thought of the contraceptive pills I had been secretly taking. Zachary must have switched my medication. Zachary had tricked me. I felt sick, nauseous. I became depressed, refusing to eat, hiding in my room. When Zachary spoke to me, I ignored him. The more compliant I had been before, the more resistant I was now. Zachary's eyes were like cold stars as he said through gritted teeth, "Valda Carver, you ungrateful wretch. You'll have this baby whether you like it or not. It's the fruit of our love. What love between us." I lay on the bed, turning my back to Zachary, not even glancing at him. I refused to eat. When he tried to feed me, I vomited on the floor. I looked at Zachary with hateful eyes until he finally snapped, saying, "Valda Carver, what do you want?" I said, "Zachary Baxter, why are you panicking? I've been locked in a cage and starved for 3 days before, and I was fine." Zachary stood tall before me, his 6 feet 3 inches frame casting a shadow over me. He said through clenched teeth, "Valda Carver, I'll get on my knees if you'll just eat something. Don't you know you have a baby inside you?" I knew, of course. I knew my body better than anyone, but I couldn't help it. I felt no love for this child. I said, then kneel. With a thud, Zachary immediately knelt down. The 6 feet 3 inches man on his knees looked like a bear, ridiculously comical. Kneeling, he held up the bowl of porridge and said, "Valda Carver, will you eat now?" In the end, I ate. The game of depression was just the beginning, the real gift was at our wedding. How ridiculous Zachary Baxter is. He disregards the law, yet desperately wants a legally recognized marriage with me. He didn't need to go to the register office, he just had someone stamp our documents directly. Zachary Baxter never dreamed that I had kept that video for 3 years, saved from my sister's phone. He destroyed all copies but didn't realize that I, the victim, still had one. I played this video at our wedding. All the guests fell silent, but I laughed loudly on the wedding stage. Zachary smashed all the screens at the wedding in his fury, even wanting to shoot the person who played the video. The wedding was utterly ruined. Zachary, wearing his suit, asked me with red eyes, "Can't we start over?" I pointed at the video and asked with a laugh, "What do you think?" Zachary's eyes were already uncontrollably red. He asked me, "What should we do now?" Then, Zachary slowly crouched down, covering his face and growling like a beast, tears flowing through his fingers. At this moment, he was no longer the cold and ruthless Zachary Baxter, but a boy who had lost his love and collapsed. In this moment, Zachary lost his dignity. He became a laughingstock in London, although no one dared to laugh at him to his face. I ignored Zachary. He tried many ways to win me back, giving me his card to buy jewelry and clothes. I didn't want to go at first, but then I thought I might as well spend his money. I was having a cold war with Zachary. When I went out to buy jewelry alone, Zachary would surely send bodyguards to watch me. I recognized those faces, but Zachary, afraid of angering me, sent Barnaby Quinn to follow me. Barnaby Quinn should have been sitting in an office helping people with their registrations, but he didn't dare refuse Zachary. So he timidly followed behind me, afraid of being discovered. I still noticed him. Feeling annoyed, I called him over and said, "Zachary told you to follow me, right? Don't hide then, just follow me and help me shop." Barnaby hung his head, not daring to say anything. I casually handed him the receipt and said, "Go and pay with the card." Barnaby took the receipt and went to pay. After hurriedly paying, he ran back to show me the receipt. I usually took the receipt carelessly, having no fondness for Zachary's people, but suddenly I froze. There was a small piece of paper lightly attached to the back of the receipt. It read, "I know you hate Zachary too. Please help me." I suddenly looked up at Barnaby. His face still wore a timid and honest expression, but his eyes were unusually bright. Looking at those eyes, I carefully crumpled the paper and slipped it into my sleeve, then nodded slightly without changing my expression. Zachary's bodyguards were waiting for me outside the shop. I said, "Barnaby, I want to buy clothes for Zachary. You two have similar builds, try them on so I can see if they fit." Barnaby nodded meekly. After he walked into the changing room, I headed towards the toilet direction, then slipped into the changing room using the blind spot. In the small changing room, I could hear Barnaby's calm breathing. I lowered my voice and said, "What's with your note? I attended your wedding with Zachary, and that's when I realized you're on the same side as me. I'm an undercover police officer. We've been investigating Zachary's connections with drug lords, but we don't have evidence. I need proof to arrest him," Barnaby explained briefly. His timid facade had disappeared, replaced by determination and calmness. "I think the same as you. I want to finish Zachary off every moment. What do you need me to help with?" I asked. Barnaby asked me, "According to my investigation, Zachary has an important transaction in a week. Can you go with him?" Barnaby spoke hesitantly. He knew Zachary liked me but couldn't guarantee he would take me along. Zachary was very cautious. Without evidence, there was no way to arrest Zachary. I had to find a way to be at the transaction site. Continuing to argue with Zachary wouldn't solve anything. I had to swallow my pride for now. That evening, when Zachary Baxter returned home, I was waiting for him on the sofa. Zachary tiptoed in carefully, afraid of disturbing me. When he saw me, he paused and asked, Why aren't you in bed? I frowned and said, Why are you back so late? My tone was impatient and angry. Barnaby said that when men are in a cold war, they tend to seek comfort from other women. Is that what you've been doing? As I spoke, I stood up and grabbed his tie, my voice extremely unfriendly. Zachary Baxter, you've ruined me, and now you're going to find other women? My barrage of accusations left Zachary momentarily stunned, but he quickly understood my meaning. Instead of getting angry, he was pleased. He grasped my hand and said, Valda Carver, you're heartless. Who else could I have besides you? I squirmed in his arms, still pretending to be upset. How would I know? You're Zachary Baxter, after all. I sniffed at him, the smell of infidelity. Seeing my cat-like behavior, Zachary burst into laughter. He hugged me and said, Valda Carver, you're jealous. I love it. I ignored him and reached for the glass of wine on the table, as if I was going to drown my sorrows. Zachary extended his long arm and snatched the wine glass from me. He frowned. You're pregnant. Don't drink. He then downed the wine in one gulp. I reached out to grab it again, but Zachary teased me by holding the glass between his teeth. Pretending to throw a tantrum, I grabbed the wine bottle from the table and tilted it towards my mouth. Zachary's expression changed instantly. His face darkened as he moved to pry open my mouth, but I quickly kissed him instead. All the wine in my mouth went into Zachary's. At such close proximity, I could almost see the fine hairs on Zachary's face. His pupils were dilated, like a dazed snake. Zachary called me a little troublemaker while still holding me tight. I enthusiastically let Zachary carry me back to the bedroom. After this incident, Zachary and I reconciled, returning to our former intimacy. I began to show signs of jealousy and suspicion. Surprisingly, Zachary quite enjoyed it. 2 days later, as I was walking down the stairs, I suddenly felt a pain in my stomach and fell. In my panic, I tried to grab onto something, resulting in a cut on my arm that required 3 stitches. Barnaby Quinn took me to the hospital. When Zachary saw me, he was heartbroken. He said angrily, I want to blow up those stairs, and those bodyguards, how are they looking after you? I replied, it's all your fault. My stomach suddenly hurt, it must be because of what you did the other night. Zachary felt a bit guilty. He gently rubbed my belly and said cautiously, I'm sorry. Zachary had been putting me through this for the first 3 months of my pregnancy. When Zachary asked the doctor about it, the doctor nearly scolded him to death. What kind of husband are you? Don't you know you can't have intercourse in the first trimester? It's fortunate the pregnant woman is all right this time. If anyone else had scolded Zachary like this, he might have shot them on the spot. But this time, Zachary meekly lowered his head and admitted his mistake, like a schoolboy who had done something wrong. So when he told me he had to go away for a while, I pretended to be angry. I want to go with you. Zachary looked troubled, but I clung to him. We're married now, what is there that I can't be involved in? I am Mrs. Baxter after all, I said, tilting my face up. The title Mrs. Baxter made Zachary's heart bloom with joy. He took me to the scene of the transaction. He was still a bit cautious when he went, confiscating my mobile phone. But what he didn't know was that the undercover police officer beside him had given me a listening device, hidden in my brooch. That red rose brooch was a gift from Zachary Baxter. He had it custom made in France at great expense, never imagining that the gift he gave me to curry favor would be the weapon to bring him down. I also pretended to be caring and dependent, leaning against Zachary. Halfway through, I yawned and deliberately called out Zachary. Zachary leaned slightly, lowering his voice as he came close to me and said, Valda, it'll be over soon. I didn't want you to come because I was afraid you'd be bored. I grunted, absent-mindedly playing with Zachary's fingers. Zachary's face didn't show it, but his ears turned bright red. Despite being a cold-blooded killer, at this moment he was like a shy young boy. All the conversations were recorded in my brooch. When we got back, I casually tossed the brooch aside. Barnaby Quinn would find a way to get it. With the evidence collected, the arrest operation began. Zachary had been entrenched in London for many years, doing no end of harmful things, and finally karma caught up with him. At night, I was awakened by violent shaking. I opened my eyes to see Zachary picking me up. His face showed no panic, but he was holding a gun, his tone brooking no argument. "Valda Carver, come with me." Before I could speak, he gripped my wrist with one hand while holding the gun with the other, forcefully insisting I follow him. I knew the police had come to arrest Zachary. Zachary's behavior clearly indicated he had a backup plan. I couldn't let him escape. Zachary quickly put my shoes on, then held my hand as we ran to the study. Once in the study, he opened the safe. I thought he was going to take jewelry or something, but instead he stuffed the paper rose into the pocket on his chest. Then, with one hand gripping the gun and the other tightly holding my hand, he rushed towards the garage. The SUV in the garage was brand new, with bulletproof glass windows. The moment I got in the car, an explosion erupted behind us. I looked back to see our mansion violently exploding from the inside. "Self-destruct system," Zachary explained briefly. We sat in the SUV as Zachary turned the steering wheel towards the forest village 5 kilometers away. In the dim car interior, only his rapid breathing could be heard. To enter the forest, we couldn't drive any further. Zachary opened the car door and helped me out, supporting my hand. Zachary didn't ask why he was being pursued by the police. He seemed to understand everything. He looked at me, his eyes full of bitterness. "I'm now a wanted fugitive in the country, Valda. You're coming with me. You owe me that much." The forest was unbearably hot, the path strewn with branches, roots, and layers of sludge. It was difficult to walk. With my poor health, I was gasping for breath after just a few steps. I sat down on the ground, unable to go on, but Zachary picked me up on his back. His broad shoulders bore my weight. Each step he took was heavy, his shoes crunching on the twigs on the ground. Leaning on Zachary's back, I asked, "Zachary, how long will it take us to get there?" Zachary replied, 2 days. "I'll carry you. I'm not tired." Zachary carried me through the night. In the evening, he pulled out a piece of chocolate and put it in my hand. It was just one piece of chocolate, the one I had casually put in his pocket yesterday. I asked Zachary, "What will you eat?" Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he said, "I'm not hungry." Due to the prolonged lack of water and food, Zachary's lips were dry, even cracked. In the moonlight, he showed no complaint, his resolute face softening with tenderness. I anxiously calculated how long it would take for the police to find us. Was Zachary Baxter really going to escape? Suddenly, a bird seemed to be startled and took flight, its chaotic chirping exploding near my ear. In the distance, I heard hurried footsteps approaching. Zachary's face changed. He abruptly picked me up and ran swiftly towards the distance. The police had found us. Bang! The sound of a gunshot jolted me. Zachary quickly shielded me, his shoulder jerking as a bullet struck his right side. Several beams from torches suddenly shone upon us. I could barely open my eyes, and Zachary used his uninjured hand to protect my vision. Squinting, I saw Zachary force a smile. What kind of smile was it? Desperate and cold, with a hint of viciousness. "I underestimated you, Barnaby Quinn. Thought you were a coward." Barnaby Quinn approached in his leather boots, his gun aimed at Zachary's head. "You underestimated justice," Barnaby said, gripping his gun with a resolute expression and calm eyes. The scent of blood filled my nostrils. Blood seeped continuously from Zachary's shoulder, staining his shirt and turning the paper rose pinned to his chest into a lurid, mournful red. Even now, Zachary wouldn't let go of my hand. Barnaby gestured for me to come over. Zachary's dark eyes remained fixed on me, unwavering. He showed no surprise, no anger at being betrayed, no cursing at me. Instead, he calmly looked at me and softly asked, "Now, you've succeeded in your revenge." Before I could speak, Zachary asked again, "Did you ever love me?" His lips were pressed tightly together, as if eagerly awaiting my answer, yet also knowing what it would be. I bit my lip. Zachary didn't wait for my response. He gave a bitter laugh, as if he had known the answer all along. He seemed to relax, his previously tense shoulders slumping slightly. Zachary suddenly raised his left hand. At some point, he had transferred the gun from his right hand to his left. I remembered that Zachary was an excellent marksman with both hands. I immediately moved to grab Zachary's gun, but he quickly pointed it at my forehead. Zachary's lips trembled, his face desperate. Valda Carver, I'll kill you first. Will you die with me? I calmed down, remaining still, and said, all right. Zachary wouldn't kill me. At the end of his life, he pointed the gun at me, wanting me to say no like I used to. Valda, will you marry me? No. Valda, shall we spend our lives together? No. Valda, please don't die, all right? This time, Zachary didn't want to hear all right as an answer. Zachary wouldn't let me die because he knew I had never gotten over my sister's death. The first target of my revenge was the innocent, the second was him, and the third was myself. I had long been prepared to die. He wanted me to live on, to promise that I wouldn't take my own life after his death. I deliberately defied his wishes. As soon as I spoke, Zachary took a deep breath. His tone was severe and unyielding. Valda Carver, don't you dare die. If you die, I'll haunt you in hell. After saying this, Zachary suddenly pushed me towards Barnaby Quinn on the opposite side. Barnaby's arm instinctively caught me. Standing beside Barnaby, I looked at Zachary sitting under the tree opposite us. He had lost a lot of blood, his face pale, like a trapped beast. Only his handsome, broken eyebrow remained tightly furrowed. He raised the gun in my direction and shouted, Valda Carver, close your eyes. Barnaby Quinn, cover her eyes for me. Before I could speak, Barnaby's hand suddenly covered my eyes. In the darkness, I heard a bang. Afterwards, Barnaby, still covering my eyes, made me turn around. I heard chaotic voices, someone saying softly, Zachary Baxter is dead. I forced myself to smile. Barnaby's hand rested on my shoulder. He said, Valda Carver, you're crying.